You're listening to In Sickness, a podcast about caregiving with Allison Breininger and Justin Bima.
Morning, Justin.
Good morning, Allison. How are things going over there?
You know, things continue to be going well. Knock on all the things.
That's fantastic to hear.
It's fantastic to say.
Yeah.
It really
I'm sure it's
is.
fantastic to live.
It isn't. It is. It really is. It's true. You know, because people always sort of like tentatively say, "How are you?"
Mm-hmm.
Or like, "How is Sean?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I'm like, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a really beautiful 2 months, I will say.
Mm-hmm.
So at first it was just sort of like December because we took it off.
Yeah.
But January, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, but in our house, I think that January has continued to go well. I've figured out my transition back into work and I'm
Good.
feeling a good balance there.
Mm-hmm.
Our girl is doing amazing at college. She just made the dean's list.
Whoa.
I know. She's doing great. So that feels
Good.
amazing. We do kind of, this is the week that Sean gets back into medical stuff. Like he has his first, he has a Mohs this week. And that's going to be real bad because, you know, he took the month off, but that was essentially just like kicking the can down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, yeah. But I will say that today, right now, we're actually doing quite well.
That's
feels
great to hear.
Great to say.
Yeah.
So, yes. And I'm trying to, you know, thinking about our last episode, which I loved.
Yeah.
About the nervous system, like just to really revel in that and be like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, hey, nervous system, look at us.
Yeah.
We're in a great moment of feeling safe and really, really paying attention to that and reveling in that, knowing that, like, of course, for any human, like that's not going to stay forever. So how can I really like pay attention and enjoy it? So it's good stuff.
That's great. I'm so happy for you, for Sean, that you've been able to have these, I mean, months.
Yes.
At this point, right?
2 months. It's
2
been,
months of just relaxation, ease, just having things go better than they have in the past.
Yeah.
Or just kind of not a lot going on, right?
Right. Well, and even like this week, we got to say to other people in our life, like, we're in a pretty good spot right now. So we actually have capacity to show up for you.
Oh, wow.
And we would love to do, like, you've shown up for us a lot. And not that it has to be like,
right,
you know, whatever. But like it felt really good to be able to say that, to be like, hey, we can show up for you, you know? So, I mean, you know, that might change this week, but we got to say last week. So that was
right.
good.
That's right.
Yeah. How about you?
Also, things are going well over here.
What?
Not a lot to note. It's been what I consider to be somewhat cold. You know, it's getting down to, I think it was 28 the other morning when I woke up. And then I always think, oh, what is the weather in St. Paul? And then
do you check?
I check sometimes and I'm like, oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah, then you stop your complaining because you're like 40 degrees colder or warmer than we are. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So, just we're in this, I mean, Washington has this bad rap of being rainy all the time, which is mostly true. But we always get this window sometime in January, February, where it's just like, it's cool.
Sure.
We won't say it's cold, but it's sunny. It's not rainy. And so it's been lovely.
Oh, nice.
So that's nice. And, you know, we're 4 weeks out from Christmas. So, you know, it took Sarah some time to kind of recover from all the activity around that. But she's doing well in that sense and kind of mostly over that hump. So that's been good.
Good.
I've been easing back into work since taking a little bit of time off around the holidays, and nothing.
Do you still do all your bird stuff when it's cold?
Yes, I do. I haven't done quite as much this month just because I don't know, I just haven't. But I'll bundle up and go out. The birds are still out there. I've got some bird stuff to do when we're done talking here this morning. So
nice.
So still enjoying that, and that's been good, lovely as well.
I'm glad that's a year-round thing.
Yeah, actually, winter is one of my favorite times to do it because we have all of these birds come from up north in winter down here. So there's a lot of new birds that hang out all winter, and so it's fun to see all of those. So
great. I feel like we should have like a bell we ring or like a tally mark, because how many times? So episode 103?
Yeah.
How many times have we started when both of us are in a good place?
Yeah.
Probably we could count on like one hand.
Yeah.
So I just feel like being like, da, 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 you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
that's
love
lovely.
it. So what are we talking about today?
Yeah. So what we're going to talk about today is the fact that, as caregivers, as people going through difficult times, we have things that we want to share what's going on in our lives. We've talked about that in multiple episodes and times, that like being able to share is like, one, it's kind of an avenue to get support, because if people don't know what we're going through, they don't know that we need the support. And so how important that is. But also we have this hard stuff that we're going to share. And on top of how we think about, we're considering everything else in our minds, like how our person's doing, and like all of these things we got running around in our head. There's these thoughts around, well, how is what I'm going to share impact this person, right?
Yeah.
Like we're also kind of we have this caregiving mindset towards the person, the listener of our stuff. And so, there's sometimes it's like, well, I don't want to burden them with this difficult information. Sometimes it's they have something difficult going on right now. And it's like, well, I don't want to minimize what they're going through or add on to that and maybe they don't have the capacity for that. Or maybe they're in like a really lovely moment and you don't want to like be the Debbie Downer and kind of like bring the mood down in that sense. And I think this can also apply to the person you're caring for, as far as, especially I think in a spousal sense, but I think it probably also applies in other contexts where it's you're used to being the people that's the person that you process, talk through, talk about everything with. And they're also in a really tough spot.
Yeah.
And depending on what kind of day they're having, or I think also around, and I think we've talked about this at different points, like what you're sharing, the hard thing that you're sharing, I think could come across to them as like they're the hard thing.
Right.
And so that's, I think, a difficult thing where I can see there being a lot of hesitancy as a caregiver to really open up fully to your spouse in that context, as far as what this all is, what's going on, how you're feeling, and all of that. So that's kind of a roadmap.
Sure.
Of what we can talk about today.
Yeah.
What do you have?
Can we start back? I was going to say, can we start backwards?
Yes, we can.
Because I think that spousal thing, and I think I was thinking about this, that I think it could probably also apply in like a parent-child relationship. So let's say I'm a caregiver for my mom, and let's say she, is always the person that I've been able to go to about my hard things. But now maybe the hard thing, this is all fictional, by the way.
Right.
Maybe now the hard thing, like you said, is the fact that I would be caregiving for her. And now I can't, do I go to her to say that? Right. And I think with spouses, this can happen a lot. I was just actually talking to somebody about this the other day around infertility, because I remember that when that happened for Sean and for me years ago, that, when you're in a couple situation, typically I feel like early on, it's the kind of thing where like one person has like a bad day at work. Right. So then they can come home and they can vent to the other person, who can kind of rally and listen and or vice versa, because there's separate hard things that the people are going through. And you get to go to your person and talk about that hard thing. But when you're dealing with infertility, when you're dealing with a diagnosis, right, it's this thing, and maybe even parenting to an extent, it's this thing that the two of you are both in. And so you're both having a hard time.
Yeah.
And you want to go to your person, the person you're used to going to process with, but they're also in it. And so they can't just be like, okay, I'll listen to your hard day at work, because they're like, no, I'm also having a hard day about that. Or maybe they're having a great day and not thinking about the hard thing that you're living through. And so it can be like, when is a good time? Is it a good time? Do I want to bring them down? Do I want to make them feel like, again, like if you said, they could feel like in our situations, like if I say to Sean, I'm really stressed about this Mo's coming up or whatever. And then he's like, well, that's me. Like I am doing this to you. Right. And so it can be this thing around when it's a shared hard thing.
Yeah.
That how do you talk to your favorite person often? Right. Or maybe can you? Maybe it's like grief around, like maybe I don't get to talk about this thing with my person. Right. So what are your thoughts on that around that piece?
Yeah, I have a couple things.
Yeah.
The first thing that came to mind is our favorite ring theory. We're viewing them as being in the center of the ring. We're the one ring out, and we're not supposed to dump our stuff inward.
Good
right?
call. Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
I think there's some nuance there, and this depends on, you know, your relationship with your spouse going through this, because I mean, some people are maybe don't have the best relationships and they're in a caregiving situation, and that's a whole challenge of its own. But if the two of you can see yourselves as a team going through this together, and if you can have that mindset more so than, you know, they're sick, I'm the caregiver, like together we're facing this thing, I think. And if there's some sort of mindset there to where you can together talk about how this is hard. Yeah. When it's specifically around the diagnosis, around the illness, that I think there's room for some sharing there. Yeah. But also, you know, there are times, depending on what your person has, that they may be unavailable to talk to, whether that's because they're just in so much pain, or like having just a horrible day, or like cognitively, they're not there as much as they were before, where that's maybe not, even though we can view it as this team and we can share, there are times where it feels like now's not the time. Yeah. Right.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And I think to note, because I work with a lot of caregivers whose person is having cognitive decline in one way or another, or a brain injury or something like that. And so I think that for some folks, they are just in a stage, and maybe it's a permanent stage, in which their person does not have the capacity to share this with, right? Like they just don't. And so I think there's two different kind of buckets here, right? One is my person has the capacity, but maybe not today. Maybe today is a rough day. And then other people who like have really kind of lost that person in their life in this way, right? I mean, physically they're still here, but cognitively they're not in a space anymore in which the one partner can talk to the other one about these hard things and have a responsive conversation, right? And so I just want to pause to say, like, think about the grief in all of these pieces of not anymore being able to just be like, I have a hard day, I get to go home and I get to talk to my person, right? But instead having to manage around all of these different, oh, are they having a good day? Are they having too good of a day? Am I going to ruin it? You know, all of those things. And I think that there's all kinds of reasons for grief. In that. I do want to go back to your ring theory thing, though, because I think you're right that I think that over the years we have figured out that the ring theory is fallible.
Yeah, right. It's not perfect.
It's not. And so I think that this is a moment when it's not, right? Is that, but I think that if our brains are thinking of it that way, which often caregivers are, my person's in the middle. Yep. Everything revolves around them, including me. Right. Right. And I can't dump into them. I can only comfort. And I think if we pull out somehow, instead of it making it be about the person and instead be about the illness or the injury or the whatever. And so if in my situation, if we say like, okay, we're mad at Fanconi anemia, or the thing we're dealing with is Fanconi anemia, then it's not he's in the main circle, I'm in the second circle. Can we be in a circle together or whatever? Right. And we are both dealing with this thing as opposed to our person being the thing. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a good way to look at it. And I think that another, you know, something that came to mind here is, you know, maybe you just don't feel ready or comfortable yet sharing with your partner how the illness, the diagnosis is making is how you're having a hard time with that. Like for whatever reason, that just doesn't feel comfortable for you yet.
Sure.
Or you don't, it just feels too much to offload that on them. The thing to remember, I think, in most relationships is they want to still be able to support you. Like they, I think, probably often feel like they are the one receiving all of the support. And like you were saying, you're in a good time and you were able to reciprocate some support that you'd received. Like that can feel really good. Yeah. Yeah. So I think, you know, you have a bad day at work, share that bad day at work. That's an unrelated thing to the illness.
Sure.
Right? And if they can support you in that, you can start creating some pathways there to where there is that support that goes back and forth.
Yeah.
To where maybe in time you can feel more comfortable and they can feel more comfortable with a discussion about how you're both in this together with the disease. Does that
No, I think
seem good?
Yeah, I think that sounds great. And I think, we say this often, but you and I are both very fortunate to be in super positive, healthy relationships with the person we're caring for. And we know that is not the case for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so I know we can make it sound rosy and easy, like just make a pathway, right? And and for some people, they're maybe rolling their eyes a little bit like, yeah, that's never going to happen with the person I'm caring for. So I just want to acknowledge that piece. I think another piece around this with, I think, anybody that we talk about today is just asking. So whether it's about a hard day at work or about the way I feel about this disease, is just saying like, hey, I'm wondering, do you have some capacity? I've got some stuff I want to talk to you about today, or some stuff that I'm feeling, thinking, whatever, experiencing. Are you up for listening tonight, or would you rather I wait for another day? And so sort of instead of just being like, boom, like unload, which I think is probably a healthy thing in any relationship.
Yeah, right.
But especially with someone who is maybe going through an illness, to just say, how is your capacity today? Yeah. Do you want to could I talk to you about this tonight? Or would you rather I wait till this weekend or the next time that you're maybe have a little more capacity, Right. Or do you have sort of designated time and space for that, right? So that they're not like, I was just chilling here on the couch and now all of a sudden you're talking to me about this hard thing. I was not prepared for that.
You have a daily or a weekly check-in that you kind of both know is going to happen or something, maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
Or like on, we go out for dinner. I don't know, whatever that is, right? Like, or is it a more structured thing? Like, is it a couples therapy thing or, something where you're like, this is the place where I get to talk about this?
Yeah.
Because I think that bottom line, as my mother-in-law used to always say, bottom line, is that like the hard things, we got to get them out.
Yeah.
Right. And so today we're talking about, do we do it this way or do that? Or how do we, or we what? But I think you got to say them to somebody somewhere.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Right. And so if within this, you just determine like, okay, my person doesn't have the capacity. Okay. We can grieve that. And who then instead or where can you get that out so that you're not just like filling up with all of these feelings.
Yeah. And I know another thing we talk about a lot is we're both very, have had good experiences with therapy.
Yeah.
Right. And not everybody has therapies, maybe not something that's super accessible to everyone for a variety of reasons, but that is one avenue to where you can always have a person to offload and share to. And based on the way that relationship is structured, they are there to take on all of this hard stuff. You don't have to feel bad that you're just offloading onto them. So I think that can be a great tool. It could be something like, I know you do caregiver coaching and, you can be there to hear that and support through that as well. Yeah. So those are some, but I think you're right. It's super important to get the stuff out. Yeah. Because if you keep it inside, that's just, it's not going to go well.
Right.
For you.
Right. And then not for the people around you either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then another thing I was thinking of is, so you want to share this stuff with your person and to maybe think about, or you're struggling with just how your life has changed so much due to this illness and you have all of this additional caregiver responsibilities and just there's a lot going on there and you want to talk about that, right? Are you looking to just express that and get that off your chest? That can maybe not, that doesn't have to be your partner, maybe. But also sometimes we want to share because we want to feel that closeness of, being able to talk to each other and being able to, like, you're craving their support just as much or more than getting whatever you are feeling out of your head.
Yeah.
And so to kind of think about what you're looking to receive and kind of thinking about who you share with in that regard. Is that, I think the other piece there is to, if, again, we have, wonderful relationships with our partners, and this may not be a comfortable conversation or a possible conversation, but to have kind of a like to talk about, don't talk about the hard things, but talk about how you want to share with them because you want to feel that closeness. And to kind of, when I talk about these things, like one part of it is that I need to voice this, but also like I want to feel that closeness from you in your support. And if kind of a slight reframe there can kind of help both of you.
Sure.
In that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's super powerful. And I think the other part of that is wanting to feel the closeness of the support, but also wanting your person to know you.
Yeah.
Right. So if there's this whole chunk of me that I'm sharing with a therapist or whatever, but I'm not sharing with my person, then it's like they're not knowing all of me.
Yeah.
Right. And there can be grief in that of like, we used to tell each other everything.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, there's this whole huge, probably chunk and really important chunk that I feel like I can't, or I don't want to, or it's not, or I'm not able to. And so I think that that's the piece too of the closeness is wanting them to really like, okay, sure, you can go talk to a therapist and that can be really helpful. And I want to talk to my person.
Right.
I want them to be the person I go to, or I want them to know how I'm really feeling. Right.
Yeah. And I think that can also apply to a parent situation where like they have raised you, they have been your parent, they have been there for you through everything, and you want them to be there for you through this.
Yeah.
But that relationship is different now, or it's just different. And so longing for that maybe can't be there. Yeah, I think that applies to a relationship like that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think in the end, it probably ends up being like a soup of different types of support, right? And so like maybe your therapist is the person, because I love that about them. Like we don't, you're not supposed to start a therapy session with, how are you, therapist?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And even if they're terrible, they're not supposed to tell you. And so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
And it's one place where you don't have to worry about that. And so that's a place where you could just come on in and be like, blah, here's all the things, right?
Yep.
So there's a place where like for 50 minutes,
yeah,
and they're entirely objective, or they're supposed to be, right? So for 50 minutes, you can just like unload all the things, right? So maybe that's like sort of the big release.
Yeah.
But then other like smaller release. So then maybe to your person, you don't need your 50 minutes and you're able to just say some smaller things. Or even like sometimes what I'll do is start a conversation with Sean by saying, something I talked about in therapy this week was XYZ, because it's kind of an in, right, to the conversation. But then it's also like, I processed it all, but I just want you to know this is something that and I could see how I could ask him. I could see how that might feel a little weird to be like, really, you just spent 50 minutes talking about me? I mean, I'm sure he's not surprised.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? But that's just a way to sort of say, like, here's something I've been processing.
Yeah.
I've got the therapist to help me work through it, but I also want you to know that this is something I'm thinking about and going through, you know? Yeah. I think it's just interesting because we're all caregivers at heart. I mean, whether we chose this or wanted to or not, being a caregiver often makes us more caregivery, right? And so we have support groups.
Yeah.
So folks listening, we have a support group attached to every podcast episode. And so come join us online. But somebody said the other day, well, to me separately, a hard thing happened in my caregiving life this week, but I didn't want to burden the group with it. Or another person just passed away and was like, I was going to come to group, but I didn't want to make everybody feel sad. And so I think that, and and I can see it both ways.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's a support group. You're supposed to, we're supposed to be able to get the support. And so I wonder if there's some sort of thing that we can give ourselves permission to. We're going to put something out there to our person, to the group, to a friend, and they are also adults, and they can decide how this, or they can, this is going to impact them the way it's going to impact them, and not in an unkind way. I'm not just saying like whatever, but like they're there for us, and we don't have to always, be like holding like, oh, I can't because I have to take care of their feelings too. Do you know what I mean? And it's a tight balance.
Yeah. I think certainly for me, going through a caregiving experience has made me more attuned to seeing the hard stuff in other people's lives,
Mm-hmm.
And kind of being aware of that in a way that I don't think I was before. And so you're more attuned to like, they've already got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you're a support group. Everybody's got their stuff they're going through.
Right.
And so we're thinking about their feelings, their emotions, how they're going to not wanting to negatively impact them or, like you said, burden them
Mm-hmm.
with our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like these are things going on in our brains. And I think personality type can play into that too.
Sure.
Like I think for myself as like a peacemaker,
Mm-hmm.
somehow like sharing my hard stuff feels like it's wrecking the like
the
vibes or something. Right. And I want
right.
to like keep those good or something. I don't know.
Yes.
There's an aspect to that.
Yeah.
But like if it's a support group, like they are there, like, yes, you're showing up to support them,
Mm-hmm.
but they're there to support you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so like that's a place where I think you should feel comfortable bringing your stuff. And you know, I know that the support group that you run is an absolutely lovely group of people
Mm-hmm.
who are
Mm-hmm.
there to support each other.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a space, if you have a space like that,
Mm-hmm.
to remember that. And also I think it's important to remember that it's not, it doesn't have to be like keeping tabs on, oh, I've been sharing too many hard things with them and haven't been able to be there for them as much. And you kind
Sure.
of alluded to that at the beginning, where it's like,
Yep.
you're in a space where you can help out some friends who have been helping out you, but it's not about like
Yep.
keeping that an even tab. And so to kind of not let that be a barrier as well, that kind of feeling like, well, I've been just going through stuff and over and just all of this stuff, and I've just been bringing everything down, and I need to just like not be so much
right
all the time.
Right. Yeah. Because I think there's certainly a balance, right? Like think about the support group. My support groups are 75 minutes long. There's like 15, 20 people there.
Right.
That means like someone can't come and tell us their entire story.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a difference between saying like, okay, I'm going to take up the whole room and the whole space and tell everybody my stuff and just fire hose at you.
Right.
Either in a support group or just in a coffee shop friend situation.
Mm-hmm.
That's one end of the spectrum. I think the other is saying like, hey, this hard thing happened this week and I want to tell you about it. And here's the beautiful thing about support groups. It almost always happens is that people say, I am leaving feeling less alone because I'm hearing other people going through the same thing I am. So especially in a space like that of fellow caregivers, if you say, hey, I went through this hard thing this week, almost always there are people who are going to start nodding and being like, yep, me too. And it actually makes them feel better to know that they're not the only one.
Exactly. Yeah.
And who knows, like you go to coffee with your friend and you're like, oh, I'm not going to tell them about how I've been caring for my uncle lately because I don't want to burden them. But then you say that and they're like, I've been caring for my grandma. Right. And so some of it is just like getting it out there because everybody's not talking about it, you know, but I think we can pay attention to, it's not just like, okay, you sit there and I'm just going to like fire hose all of my hard stuff at you for like 60 minutes. Right. Obviously it's a back and forth, but I think that we can, I mean, that's what friendships are about. Right.
Right.
Because a thing that made me think about this topic originally was another friend of mine said that her friend had gotten a cancer relapse, you know, found out her cancer had relapsed, but didn't tell her until the new year because she didn't want to ruin her holidays. And my friend was like, what? You know, that this person was going through this really hard thing, but was like considering her friend's holiday magic, you know? So, you know, and I don't know what the right answer is there.
Yeah.
But I think that my friend was sort of heartbroken that her friend was going through this hard thing.
Yeah.
And didn't tell her because she was worried about that. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know the answer there, but I just think that we can, I would guess that caregivers skew to the side of not sharing.
Yeah. I think
as opposed to oversharing. Right. And so how can we both for our health and wellness find avenues to share, also for our relationships? Because if we share how we're really doing, right? That can deepen relationships. But also because there's probably like, it's getting the story of caregiving out there, and it's getting, it's probably the next person is going to say like that's happening to me too, So I think there's all kinds of benefits to it.
Yeah. I think it also kind of, this highlights the importance of having a community around you.
Yeah.
Which I say that, and I know it's important, and I know that there are people who don't have that, and for whatever reason, that's a building that has been challenging, and that that's tough. And I'm sorry to those people, genuinely, that's been such a struggle, because I think having a community means that you have multiple avenues, to multiple outlets, for this hard stuff you're going through, and you can kind of scan, okay, who has the capacity for this? There's obviously maybe some people that they don't have the capacity for this right now. And so someone else may be able to help be a sounding board for you. So I think that can be a great thing to having, and therapy could be one of those outlets as well. Your person could be one of those outlets, and just to kind of have options there, because it's important to get it out.
Well, I think each of those things you're going to get something different from that, right? I could share the same hard story with each of those different outlets and get a different sort of feedback. Or saying it to this person might make me have a different realization about it, right? And so, and I think when you say the thing about community, I mean, I hope that we here are building some community, and I am in some ways excited that a lot of people are leaving the social media world, because really it's hard and it's not the greatest place. But also I'm scared for us as caregivers, because we're so isolated, and social media is a place where we connect, right? So I'll just say, we're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. And I just want people to know that, like, even if physically or, in your other spaces, you've had a hard time finding community, to know that, like, we have it here. And if you haven't joined a support group, like, join us, because it's like the most welcoming, lovely group of people. Or reach out to Justin or me online, any of us. And so just know that you got us too. Right. And when you said the thing about capacity, like, I have a good caregiver friend who has texted and said, like, do you have capacity for me to vent about something right now? And I, know her well enough to be able to say, like, yes, absolutely. Or like, not right now, but, I'll let you know when I do, And so I think just having that, like, not just assuming, right, that your person is just ready for that, but also not just being like, well, Allison's got so many things, I can never reach out to her, right? Like, give me the option. Because I think that's the thing too, is I would want to know, I would be really sad if that friend didn't ever reach out, because she was just like, well, Allison's too busy. Allison's too stressed. And then never even gave me the option. Like, at least give me the option and say, do you have capacity today? And I can say yes or no. But don't just, like, assume that I don't have the capacity for it, And same thing with our spouses or our person. They might have say the same thing.
I wonder, like you're saying, wondering if the person has capacity. Like, caregivers often come together for support, whether that's online, having caregiver friends online, whatever it is. I wonder if there's a hesitancy there then to share your stuff, because you know that they are going through hard stuff. Right. But at the same time, like, they're going to get it. But I think there is some, like how you said, to ask, like, hey, do you have capacity to take this on, or to I don't know, to build that rapport, to kind of know where, I don't know, how to share that and when and what's appropriate. And, but that's just building a deeper friendship. And I think that's just part of having that relationship, is that give and take, and knowing kind of where each other are at. Like, Sean has a Mohs procedure on Tuesday. You're going to be at home through that. Like, I'm probably not going to Tuesday text you with all of these problems going on in my life and like, hey, I need to vent all of this stuff. Like, there are other places on Tuesday I can go with that.
Exactly.
You know?
Or I could see you saying, or somebody saying, I know that, and I've had people do this beautiful thing. I know this is a big day for you. Would you feel, do you want some distracting gossip? you know, or
Yeah.
would it feel distracting and nice to hear about like this other thing that's going on in my life?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want some, you know, like whatever? But I mean, so again, to not just assume, right? But to say like, give the person the option.
Yeah.
You know, this is a hard day. I've got this like first world problem going on in my life or whatever.
Yeah,
you know what I
right.
mean? Like, would that be a nice distraction for you, or would you rather I wait for another day? You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What about our supporters?
Yeah. Supporters.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about how it's important for caregivers, people going through hard things in general, humans as a species, to share your hard stuff, to have outlets for that. So as supporters, making it clear that you are available for that.
Mm-hmm.
To maybe that's, you know, you're texting them, you know, hey, I know you're going through a lot. We're thinking about you, you know, can I, you know, you give an offer, hey, can I bring you dinner on Tuesday?
Mm-hmm.
And also, you know, hey, I'm available if you need to talk about how things are going or something like that. To offer that, I think is important. I think too, if you're going out for coffee with them, to say, hey, you know, do you want to talk about what's going on? Give them the option. And don't take it personally if they choose not to.
Right.
Like that doesn't mean that they don't think that you're a safe person to share that to. It could just be that they're there for a distraction.
Yeah,
like
exactly. Exactly.
They want to exist in normal life for a little bit, to kind of dip out of their life and kind of, you know, just do a normal thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. But yeah, just being open, being available to allow them to share.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite questions, is that piece around like, I know that a lot's going on. Do you want to talk about that? I'm here for that if you want. Or would you rather talk about anything else?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about what you've been watching on TV? Like, so that they know, because I feel like otherwise you can't win, right? If I didn't ask at all, then they might be like, why didn't you ask about my whatever that's happening? Yeah. If you did ask, then they're like, I'm at a coffee shop right now and I don't want to talk about this. You know what I mean? And so I love giving people that option, right? The other piece is about toxic positivity.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So like, let's say a caregiver or any human comes to you, shares their hard stuff. Don't brightside them. Don't minimize it. You know, be there. Just be like, it's just all about like the listening, being present, saying the like, oh, sounds hard. Right. You know, you had mentioned something earlier, which reminded me about the question that is good to say when someone vents to you is like, would you like to talk about solutions, or are you just sharing to vent?
Yeah.
Because too often, many of us go to fix it mode. And maybe someone's like, I do not need you to fix this. I am not here. You know, I just want to like spew it all out. Right. And so even asking that, like, wow, thank you for sharing all of that with me. Do you want to talk through some solutions or in scenarios, or were you just hoping to vent today? I'm open for whatever you need. You know? And so letting them know you are a safe space and that they can give you that, you can handle it. And I mean, that's something that we used to say a lot to Maya when she was little, like, we're your parent. We can handle any of this. We can handle any hard things, you know? And I think to say that to them, like, we can handle this if you feel like you really can, you know, and then, letting them know you're a safe space and that you're not going to brightside them, and that they can just be there. You can just be there for them. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the bit about asking, okay, do you want to just vent, or are you looking for solutions? I think that's such a beautiful thing to put out there. Because sometimes people they're not in a space where they want to try to solve the problem, or they feel like they just want to be heard.
Yeah. Of course.
It reminds me, there's an online space I'm in where there's like a channel for venting, no advice. There's a channel for venting advice. And so there's, depending on what you need, there's a place for you to just,
I love it,
to get what you need in that context.
Yeah.
So
And I love that, like, it's so clear.
Yeah.
So people aren't even tempted.
Yeah.
They can't even be tempted to give advice because it's in the title, you know?
Exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I'm going to be pondering too some of the things you said about like how we can approach this in our closest relationships as well, you know, and then what it is that we are sort of craving.
Yeah.
We're craving that closeness. We're craving that support. We're craving the closeness of sharing all the pieces of ourselves.
Right.
And to note that for many people that is no longer available in their situation, and to take time to grieve that.
Yeah.
And to realize, oh, that's another hard thing about this caregiving thing, right? Is I'm going through this hard thing and I don't even have the support of my person anymore, you know? So that's another piece to just be aware of. And yeah. Well, I'm already excited about the support group on this topic. And so people can watch for the link for that and join us. If it's like I said, it's a lovely space. It's on Zoom, so you can have your camera off and you can have your microphone off. Some people just like to sit and listen, and you don't have to participate and share if you don't want to. If you hate it and you want to leave 3 minutes in, nobody's feelings are hurt. You know, you can. So just keep an eye for that and join us if that's another thing that people would like to do. So, all right.
Sounds great.
Well, thank you for being a person I can say my hard stuff to.
Same to you as well.
Yeah. All right, my friend. I'll see you soon.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to In Sickness. Find us online at insickness.care or on Instagram at insicknesspodcast. You can send your questions and comments to insicknesspodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend or fellow caregiver, or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Thanks for listening, and take care.